86. Okay, studio, you can reveal the results now. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Great to see this. Tujipigie makofi. So the majority are saying developing appropriate strategies to enhance your impact in communities you serve. And I think we'll all agree that often this is not the kind of capacity development that we get, but we're saying this is the capacity development that we need. Lakini, there's an issue. I think we are very optimistic about the kind of support that we are getting. We think we're getting enough. We think out of the proportion of global funding for development that goes to civil society, we're getting a huge chunk. So without much further ado, Viveka has a power-packed presentation on these dark recommendations to help us understand. So let's invite her with a very warm welcome and a big round of applause.
Excellent. Okay, super duper. I'm very happy to be here. This is very exciting. Just a warning, I'm a political scientist, and this is one of my absolute favorite topics to discuss, and you will probably sense that in this presentation. My name is Viveka Karlestam. I work at the Swedish Embassy with SIDA here in Tanzania. I arrived in September, and before that I worked as a policy advisor at SIDA for civil society. So these have been my issues for the last 7 years. And before that, I have been working in Latin America and in the Middle East and around the world for a couple of decades now. Okay, let's see. Do I have the pointer? Yes, Alice, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I wanted to take the temperature in this room to begin with. I wonder if this is how you feel. Do you feel that there is a limited access to funding? Do you feel that there is a lack of trust? Is there a lack of flexibility? Are you suffering from high administrative demands and compliance requirements from donors? Do you sense that there is an unequal partnership relation? Is there a lack of mutual dialogue and consultation? Do you feel that you are being donor-driven instead of mission-driven? Is there do you sense that there is a lack of respect for local knowledge, capacity, and skills? So I have met very many global South civil society organizations during my years in this work, and this is what they all tell me, and this is what they have been telling me for many, many years. And as Justice was mentioning, they also ask, it's very common that they ask, when will we ever graduate from the capacity building? One woman I met in Latin America, she told me that she had been, or her organization had been capacity built up over her head. All the capacity building you can imagine, and still they were not graduating and not being trusted in their own right to do the work that they were created to do. So I have the pointer now. Nevertheless, parallelly, the international community continues to state and recognize the vital importance of civil society, saying that civil society's role is more crucial than ever. And why? We all know why. Democracy is backsliding globally. Autocracy is on the rise, as we know. Civic space is shrinking. The SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and Agenda 2030 can only be fulfilled by 2030 if the contributions of civil society are made possible. And this says, for instance, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and we all agree. Civil society speaks truth to power, says Civicus and Oxfam, because civil society is addressing root causes of poverty and injustice. Now, having listened to a few of the speeches yesterday, maybe the ideal CSO, civil society, that they are thinking of here are the movements, the grassroots, the informal actors, and so on. So, hence, it is essential to recognize civil society as an independent development actor in its own right. Fortunately, all of the donor countries, or the OECD DAC member countries, and we are 30 in number. It is Sweden, the EU, UK, Switzerland, Canada, the US, Denmark, Norway, Finland, Belgium, the Netherlands, France, Spain, etc., etc. We also realized that something in the system was not working well. It was not good. And we decided together to carry out a very, very comprehensive study of all of these 30 DAC members, donors, CSO engagement worldwide and support. And here are some of the findings, the most important findings from this study carried out in 2020 by the OECD DAC. As you see, we concluded that there is a need for more funding to, not through, CSOs in partner countries. So not using civil society organizations to implement something that the donors have defined. So they will be allowed to be mission-driven instead of donor-driven. That is also one way to avoid undermining the legitimacy, the relevance, the accountability of the local CSO to its own constituency. And then, also mentioned by Justice, this study found that there is a disproportional funding flow. 93% of all of this global funding meant for civil society in the partner countries go to, by contrast, to northern or our own domestic civil society organizations, INGOs, and 7%. And this was year 2020. It has changed a bit. It's maybe 8% today. But this was a very shocking piece of information for us too, and we are very ashamed about it. And one of the reasons to why this has occurred is because many of us, DAC member countries, we tie or earmark funding to our own civil society organizations. And there are reasons for that, but it's not a good thing to do that. There is a need for more trust-based, direct and core support to civil society organizations in the countries. And we also asked ourselves, how come such a large share of funding is going through intermediary INGOs? So that has been an issue that we have talked about. Then we saw that there is a need for more structured dialogue and consultation with civil society in the partner countries, acknowledging the knowledge and the skill and the capacity of these organizations. It's a good thing, you know, to learn from each other and collaborate so that it becomes more development effective. And then we saw that there is a burdensome amount of administrative requirements from us to civil society organizations. So this needs to decrease dramatically. And we need to increase power. We need to revisit our own mindset, our narratives, our language, the way we talk and our assumptions and everything around that. So, in conclusion, this study found many weaknesses in the system that we, the donors, have created, and there were large gaps between policy and practice, and so we decided to do something about it urgently. It doesn't want to move? Or it moves back to the first slide? Thank you. I think I am there. That was the one I was pressing, actually. Sorry? So I pointed in that direction. Okay, sorry, I didn't know. Okay, so we decided in the OECD DAC that we were to do something about this challenge, and we decided to adopt a recommendation. There it is. Okay, so we knew that something had to be done, and we joined forces. We created a working group within the OECD DAC. It's called the Community of Practice, where all of these 30 countries participated. We were the ones elaborating, negotiating, formulating the text of this recommendation. So it is created by us, and it is aimed to us, so that we change, we improve. It's homework to us. So the OECD DAC recommendation on enabling civil society in development cooperation and humanitarian assistance, that's the name of it. It was adopted in 2021, and we worked very hard on this. It wasn't easy, but we were all happy by the time it was approved, because it was approved by all of our governments. And a recommendation is the strongest legal instrument of the OECD DAC. We are obliged to implement it, and we will be monitored and followed up. And at least in theory, if one does not align its work with a DAC recommendation, you can be thrown out of the DAC. I was Sweden and SIDA's representative into this line of work for the past 6 years before I came to Tanzania, so that's why I'm very engaged in this topic. Then, let's see now, point it there. There. Okay, so the recommendation contains 3 pillars, and they are interlinked, these pillars. The first pillar is about respecting, protecting, and promoting civic space. The second pillar is about how we go about supporting and engaging with civil society. And the third pillar is incentivizing CSO's own development effectiveness, transparency, and accountability. So the overall aim is for us donors to engage better with and support civil society and civil society actors in the partner countries, and this is important, in their own right as independent development actors. You will see that this repeats over and over in the recommendation. Acknowledging, too, that our demands and control requirements, etc., can either contribute to shrinking civic space even further, or, depending on how we go about there, it can enable civil society to do the work they do. Okay, between the three interlinked pillars, it's very important that they complement and are coherently approached, the three pillars at the same time. So pillar one, pillar one is about respecting, protecting, and promoting civic space. So here it is recommended that donors, for instance, develop clear policies on how they go about engaging and supporting civil society, monitor openings and restrictions of civic space, foster strong, more coherent, proactive, and preventive actions, and counter mis- and disinformation, harassment, discrimination, and anti-democratic narratives. For the partner countries, they should be engaging in dialogue on the value of an independent civil society and public participation. They should be doing no harm to civic space, and they should be supporting institutions of accountability and oversight, legal and regulatory frameworks. For civil society, they are expected to support inclusive participation, explore and address challenges associated with digital technologies, and for private sector and independent media to promote civic space and social dialogue. There are much more provisions in the recommendation under each pillar. I chose just to mention the ones that I think are most important. Okay, pillar two then is about the how we donors go about in our approaches and our methods, etc., in supporting and engaging with civil society. And we were telling ourselves that we need to have much more effective policies and practices to support and engage with civil society actors in the partner countries as independent development actors in their own right. And this also includes the issue of trust, trusting that partner country civil society knows what to do, when and how in their own context, which would also then allow them to be mission-driven and accountable to their own constituency. So what are the provisions? The ones I chose to show you today is that we need to rethink rethink the whole setup to ensure the most development effective use of resources. We need to support a more diverse range of civil society actors. It was mentioned yesterday also in several of the speeches, and here we're talking about grassroots movements, networks, alliances, and even informal actors, the ones with the potential to contribute to change, structural change. And we should be providing flexible and trust-based long-term funding, such as core support. And all of this is to strengthen local ownership and power in the partner countries, and direct support is also recommended. And direct support then means from the bilateral donor to civil society actors in the global south. I have this one. And pillar 3 is about incentivizing CSO's own effectiveness, transparency, relevance, legitimacy, and accountability towards its own constituency. So here it is mentioned that we should be supporting civil society organizations to promote participatory and human rights-based approaches for local ownership and accountability. We should be building, or you should be building, on good practices for CSO-led self-regulation, transparency, and accountability, for instance, using codes of ethics and conduct. If you are aware of the Istanbul Principle for CSO Development Effectiveness, way back in time, it was agreed in 2010. So that is one point. And the civil society organizations should be recognizing the existing capacity in partner countries and build from there, and encourage and support strategic alliances and collaborations within civil society itself at all levels, global, regional, national, and subnational, without necessarily having the donors sticking their nose into your business. So, and it's interesting because we as donors, we have a tendency to talk about this pillar a lot. We like that because it takes away the focus from us and the things that we need to change and improve. And so again, that is why this whole recommendation is aimed to us, not to you. So to help ourselves, because this is not a very simple thing that you change from one day to another, we decided that we needed to develop toolkits for ourselves. And so we did. And there are, at the moment, 2 published toolkits. I have them with me if somebody would like to see them. The first one is called the Funding Civil Society in the Partner Countries, and we published it in 2023. And that one guides us donors. In conclusion, it's saying that if we aim to strengthen local leadership and ownership, and to foster a strong, independent, and diverse civil society, we should, no doubt, increase the availability and the accessibility of direct, flexible, and predictable core support and direct support. The second toolkit is called Shifting Powers with Partners. We published it last year. And it is trying to move away from having the majority of important decisions made in the donor countries, exploring ways to shift power to the partner country civil society, addressing the power imbalances in partnership, and moving towards equitable partnerships with and between civil society organizations. And the third toolkit is called Coordinating Action on Civic Space. It is under development. I'm sure it's going to be very, very useful when it is finally published. It will be published this year, but it hasn't been published yet. Okay then, why power shift? This is a text from the OECD DAC Development Cooperation Report already from 2018. And it says, it is essential to shift power towards the poorest of the poor to enable empowerment and dignity in development. For northern CSOs, this may include sharing more roles and decision-making with southern partners and being prepared to let local civil society take over the job. So here it is called power shift. Others talk about localization or decolonization of aid and development. all of it together, no matter what name these different agendas who collaborate with each other clearly, no matter what name they have, it aims at increasing development effectiveness, sustainability, strengthening local ownership, more bang for the bucks, putting Global South in the driving seat to fight poverty and injustice. There. Okay, so as you can sense, I and SIDA, we are devoted to contribute to this. So we have been collaborating with different actors around the globe who are pushing for this change to happen. So some of the examples of actors is Peace Direct. We work with RINGO, which means reimagining the INGO. We work with the Shift the Power movement, and the GFCF, which is the Global Fund for Community Foundation, and others, aiming at power shift. Oh, by the way, the Global Fund for Community Foundation launched a very interesting study last year, and it is called Too Southern to be Funded. And it reflects the information that you were just told and informed about, the fact that 7% of civil society support funding goes to Global South civil society, and the rest, 93%, goes to Northern or INGOs. So they reacted to that. So we have been engaging, and I am in love with this report that Peace Direct has published, Time to Decolonize Aid. They launched it in 2021. And the reason why I love it is because they are very straightforward in what they are saying in this report. It was presented to SIDA in 2021 in a large crowd, and people were very, very passionate and engaged about this. So I stole one of their slides, and this is what Peace Direct themselves say. This is just one quote from their report, Time to Decolonize Aid. They say, and I quote, "We believe that the current system needs radical reform, particularly in how it prioritizes top-down, external, and INGO efforts over local efforts. In trying to shift power and resources in the system in favor of local efforts, we have encountered significant resistance, with excuses ranging from," and you can see what some of the excuses have been, "local actors can't be trusted, they lack capacity, local civil society doesn't exist in this region, the risk of fraud, funds going into the wrong hands is too great, local groups can't meet our strict compliance requirements, local groups aren't effective and have little impact." And so they say in the end of this slide, "We believe the root of much of this resistance lies in overt and structural racism, which is barely acknowledged by those in the system." Strong words. Okay, let's move on to the donor statement on supporting locally led development. And notice this is really interesting. It is not called here power shift. It is not called decolonizing development cooperation or localization. Rather, and this was also very long-term negotiated between us, the donors, how to formulate this. So in the end, we agreed to call it locally led development. So hence, we have from the year 2022, there is a donor statement on supporting locally led development. It was announced by the USAID, but we had all been collaborating on it. And it was signed by 19 donor countries. There are probably more coming up and joining this statement by now, and 26 plus foundations. So the countries who have signed this, apart from Sweden, they are Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Lithuania, Norway, Spain, Switzerland, the UK, the US, Czechia, Estonia, France, Iceland, Ireland, Japan, and Korea. And among the foundations are the Ford Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation, and many others. So this is a slide. It's going to show you what we committed to. We committed to this. We have committed to shift and share power. And that means supporting locally led development requires rethinking our roles as donors, understanding and valuing local knowledge, capacity, and expertise. Decisions should be made in partnership with those who will be affected by them, these decisions. We will work to prioritize and reinforce local leadership and ownership and reposition ourselves as supporters, allies, catalysts of a more inclusive, locally led, co-created and sustainable approach to development. Second commitment, or second action, is that we will work to channel high-quality funding as directly as possible. Building trust, more flexible mechanisms, longer-term perspectives, address structural barriers to local actors' access to funding, simplified reporting requirements, and re-examining the role of intermediary organizations. And the third action is that we will publicly advocate for locally led development, using our convening authority, our partnerships and networks, and our voice in international fora and multilateral institutions. This will require intentional and consistent engagement with local actors, including sharing our platforms with local partners rather than speaking for them. Okay, that was it, folks. So that was a brief, I hope, presentation of the reason to the existence of the OECD DAC recommendation on enabling civil society and the shift that is going on. It is relatively slow. I'm losing patience, but that's me. But there are things happening to push for locally led development and shifting the power. So thank you very much.
Zaidi tafadhali tumpashie. Pasha. CSO Week 2025. Safi kabisa.
I think we need justice. Yeah, why not? Why not? That would be very interesting.
Haya,
We should move the chairs, also 5 chairs.
Yes, let's do that immediately. Sawa. Haya, kamati yangu naomba tutengeneze ile podcast, mfumo ule wa podcast kama tulivyokubaliana. Na my community, naomba msubiri kidogo. Tafadhali, asante. Na tumesikiliza. Na bila shaka kuna maswali. Tunamsubiri moderator arudi. Ametoka kwenye shughuli maalum kidogo. Reactions from the floor. Mabibi na bwana, mikono yenu. Listen. Good to see you back. We were just about to shift things around to an impossible tangent. Kwa hiyo, tumpigie makofi Justice. He's the chief moderator. Please hold ulichokuwa nacho. Now please make use of the applications ambazo tunazo. Both apps unaweza kupark your questions and answers, sindio? Your questions, queries, opinions, suggestions. Kwa hiyo unaweza kuingia bado kwenye app, ukaandika pale session ambayo unaisikiliza, ukaandika jina la mtu ambaye unataka kureact naye, ikaingia humo ndani, bila shaka ataweza kukujibu baadaye akiwa anaiangalia. Lakini as this is being set up, please Justice, feel free to continue.
Amazing. Sorry, I had to step out kidogo, kulikuwa na issue ambayo ilikuwa inabidi nishughulikie. Lakini I missed part of the presentation, but I know the content of the presentation, and we've had many discussions with Viveka about this. It takes a tremendous amount of courage for someone from the DP's side to call upon us to demand accountability from them, you know? Yeah, so let's give a hand of applause for that. It takes a tremendous level of courage, yeah? Hata sisi, as CSOs, we are accountable to citizens. Not many times you will find a CSO going to the citizens to ask them to demand accountability from them, yeah? So that's lovely to see. So we are short of time kidogo, so naomba niwaharakishe kidogo our discussants. Zabdiel Kimambo from FCDO, please give him a big round of applause. Again from the DP side. Dada Neema Bwaira, jana alikuwa ambassador. Leo ni discussant, please give our warm welcome. Na kaka yetu Onesmo Olengurumwa, representing our local civil society. But I will also ask Viveka to also join the panel so that we have a quick reflection on her presentation. Amazing.
Uchumi wa nchi, AZAKI na maendeleo, asasi za kiraia na maendeleo, inajumuisha mashirika si ya kiserikali, vikundi vya kijamii, elimu, AZAKI. Kwa upande wa habari, wapo, taaluma, wapo, kidini, wapo, AZAKI. Asasi za kiraia na maendeleo,
wadau mbalimbali na taasisi mbalimbali, serikali kuu, asasi
sawa, asante sana. Tulikuwa tuna setup kwa ajili ya kurekodi hii kama podcast, kama ambavyo tulianza mwaka jana huu utaratibu. Kwa hiyo tumekubaliana kwamba tutachanganya lugha ili umati mkubwa uweze kuelewa haya mazungumzo ambayo ni muhimu sana kwa ajili ya sekta yetu ya maendeleo. Na kwanza, swali langu la kwanza kabisa asante Onesmo.
Swali langu la kwanza kabisa, ama ombi langu la kwanza kwa panelists wangu, sasa hawa watatu ambao wamejoin kwenye panel, ni watupe reactions zao kwenye hii presentation, hizi dark recommendations. Na nitaanza na upande wa development partners. Dr. Kimambo, please, your reactions on the recommendations for 2 minutes.
Asante. Asante Justice, and asante Viveka kwa ajili ya very good presentation, na nadhani ni inaibua maswali mengi sana na ni muhimu sana kujiuliza haya maswali. Lakini wakati Viveka anafanya presentation, binafsi nilikuwa najaribu kureflect kwamba kwa nini tumefikia hapa? Why did we reach here? And I think this personally ninaita ni the tension ambayo ilikuwepo na most likely itaendelea kuwepo for quite some time until when we are able to figure out exactly how do we get out of this tension. Sasa tension yenyewe ni the question around how do we balance between the intrinsic value of civil society versus the instrumental value. And I think binafsi nimekuwa kwenye sector ya development for quite a number of years. And always there is that tension kwa sababu majority of what Viveka presented, I think it really calls us as actors and supporters katika development to really ensure, I can't say balance, but I think we really need to recognize the intrinsic value. And by intrinsic, I think it is the sheer acknowledgement kwamba civil society are important as actors, not necessarily what they deliver, because at the end of the day, you first need the actors to be there, to be sustainable, to have everything. And then secondly, then it's a question about what they deliver. Now, for many years, this tension has been there. And let me give an example. And this is where you'll actually grasp the point. So, you have a situation that children are in school, teachers are in school, there is a lot of inputs that are being put in the school system, but there are no learning outcomes. You're putting all the inputs, you have the teachers, you have the pupils in there, but out of that system, there are no outcomes ambazo zinatokea. And here comes Unaweza Haki Elimu, who really focusing on that, because at the end of the day, from a development angle, we kind of want to see improvement katika learning outcomes za sector. And you really fall in love with their offer. And that then the question is, as many of these organizations, 10 members ambao wana focus kwenye hiyo sector, to what extent then there is that balance between what they exist for, but also what they do. And I think to me, I would say it is, but allow me to mention the second point ambayo nadhani ni muhimu pia kui-mention hapa, because pamoja na kwamba kuna tension, the tension, but also there is the crossroad. And I think to me the crossroad we are, it is what we saw immediately after the COVID. There was significant flow of aid, of support to countries in the south. And that wave continuous, and I think right now pia tuko katika kipindi ambacho ni kibaya zaidi kuliko kile cha mwanzo, and I think to me that again, that crossroad, kwa sababu on one hand is the question about meaningful and viability ambazo ni predictable, but we are actually increasingly seeing, and I think this question about a crossroad is quite real, because then experience organization nyingi ambazo ziko humo ndani ni kwamba there are no longer available resource spots ambazo they could actually meaningful be used. But I have other point, I'll come back later.
Asante sana Zabdel. Kabla sija kuachia before I let you off the hook, findings zinaonesha, unasema hata hiyo resource parts zimepungua generally, and as a civil society sector tuko kwenye crossroads, yes. Lakini the numbers are quite clear in terms of the proportion that goes to Global South CSOs. Na hii Development Assistance Committee in particular inaangalia masuala ya poverty reduction kwenye developing countries. Sasa kama committee ina exist kwa ajili ya developing countries, why are we in a situation where most of the money is going to international NGOs?
I will leave Viveka to respond largely to that. But there's the role, I think the call for this committee is to shift that balance in terms of ensuring that while initially a significant amount of resources were going to INGOs, I think we need to now shift that balance to ensure kwamba significant amount comes directly to sometimes I have this tension between, we're talking about local organization. I think in here context yetu tunatakiwa tuzungumze what is the balance which actually go to grassroots organizations as well as to national organization. Kwa sababu tukisema to local organization, bado we are really missing the trick. And I think in the context of many African countries, including Tanzania, I think for me, I would say the question for all of us is this quest around the grassroots-based organizations, which I think it is where a lot of citizens really, where real life is and people are. But nadhani one of the role ambayo INGOs wamekuwa wanaifanya, and this is what is the call now, is this question around capacity building. I think it's quite old dated, and clearly we cannot continue in that mode anymore. I think there is the value in terms of their ability to reach their domestic constituents, and I think INGOs wamekuwa wana play sana hiyo role, kwa maana ya they are there in terms of the voice to being able to reach their member of parliament, kuensure kwamba proper systems and legislations zinakuwa set in place, but at the same time they are also there to reach their own citizen, to being able to show and tell what is the value and what is the purpose of the system development ambayo they are carrying out there.
Yeah. Asante sana Dr. Kimambo, naomba tumu appreciate. Sawa. So Neema, same question. Naomba ushare reflection moja kuhusu hii situation. How do we practice locally led development? I think Dr. Kimambo akimalizia, in essence anasema kuna umuhimu wa kumempower yule ambaye yuko karibu kabisa na tatizo, yeah? That's locally led development. Lakini if resources are not going to them, then how do we actually truly empower them? So please, karibu, 2 minutes for a quick reflection.
All right. Asante. Thank you, Viveka, for a very good presentation. Na ningependa niongee Kiswahili sana ili kuonyesha kwamba localization is on progress. General reflection kwanza kwenye hizi dark recommendations. To me, naona pia kuna mabadiliko sana. Mabadiliko yanakwenda kwa kasi sana. Kwa sababu ukiangalia hizi recommendation in general, utaona kwamba kuna partners ambao walisaini na walikubaliana kuzitekeleza, lakini nao labda hawako hata kwenye space. Kwa hiyo unaweza ukaona kwamba sasa hivi mabadiliko yanatokea kwa kasi sana. Ukichukua reflection ya 2021, leo hii tuko 2025, mabadiliko ni makubwa sana. Kwa hiyo labda tu generally bado tunatakiwa kujiuliza kwa kiwango kikubwa bado hata kwetu sisi kama development partners, ni kwa kiwango gani tunaweza tukafikia hayo maazimio. Kwa sababu Viveka nadhani amemention kwa habari ya commitment, for example za USAID kwenye masuala ya aid na vitu kama hivyo, lakini abruptly tunaweza tukaangalia kwamba context imebadilika kwa kiwango kikubwa. Lakini labda nikirudi kwenye lile swali la ni namna gani tunaweza kuelekeza fedha zaidi katika mashirika ambayo yako jirani zaidi na community, ninaweza nikasema kwamba kama European Union kwetu sisi, ninaweza nikaongelea zaidi hapo, tunajaribu kutranslate hizi recommendation kutokana na mazingira ambayo tunayo, na kwa kiwango kikubwa tumeweza kureflect. Ninaweza kutoa some vivid examples ambayo labda previously haikuwepo. Kwa mfano sasa hivi tunavotoa funding, hata kwa wale watu ambao wanafuatilia mambo ya funding wameapply, mnaweza mkaangalia hata kwenye criteria za applicants zimekuwa so much improved. Mimi ninakumbuka kuna some of the guidelines nikizisoma za nyuma, local CSOs walikuwa hawaruhusiwi kuomba wao kama wao kwenye call for application. Lakini kwa sasa hivi tumeweka hizo criteria ambazo zinawafavor zaidi naona local organizations kuliko hata international organizations. For example, kwamba international organization akitaka aombe funding kwa EU kwa sasa hivi ni lazima apartner na local organizations. Lakini local organizations anaweza akaja peke yake, na tumeona wengi wamefanya vizuri na wamepata funding for now. Kwa mfano nikichukulia call for proposal ambao tulifunga mwaka jana, tuna international organizations 2 zimepata na local organizations 2 zimepata. Nikichukulia ile ambao tulimaliza 2022, ni international organization moja iliyopata, lakini other 5 ni local organizations. And kwenye issue ya capacity, also to reflect with what Viveka presented, I don't think kama bado tuna hiyo capacity gap, to my opinion. Kwa sababu hizi local civil society organizations zinazopata funding, we don't give them because they are local. Ni kwamba they are competent. Wamekwenda, wamecompete na international na still bado wakawa na proposals nzuri. Kwa hiyo mkiona tumetoa funding maybe for foundation, mheshimiwa hapa sasa hivi ulipata hela mwaka huu na hela. Hatukumpa Onesmo kwa sababu ni local, no. Alicompete sawa kabisa, very fair competition. Kwa hiyo mimi kwenye issue ya capacity sioni pia kama ni issue sana, kwa sababu kuna local ambao wana uwezo wa kucompete na wana uwezo wa kupata fedha na wana uwezo wa kuimplement, wakajustify namna ambavyo wanaweza kuimplement. Na hivyo kuhakikisha kwamba fedha zinarudi chini, tunaweka pia some criteria. For example, watu wanapopata funding, sometimes it's not easy kwetu sisi kushuka mpaka chini. Hatuna hiyo capacity ya wafanyakazi kuweza kumanage all those kind of contracts zote. Kwa hiyo tunaweka some criteria kwa wale watu wanaopata, kuhakikisha pia wanarudisha fedha chini kwa mashirika yale ya grassroots, lakini pia na mashirika ya vijana. Labda ninaweza nikaishia hapo kwa sasa hivi. Asante.
Asante Neema. I'll come back to you with another question. Naomba appreciate Neema. Sawa, Onesmo. Kwanza naomba reaction yako. Wewe kama local civil society, tumeambiwa hapa kwamba kuna pesa nyingi sana kutoka EU. Lakini sekta ikoje? Tuambie, tupe reflection kuhusu the development aid system.
Asante sana. Habari za asubuhi. Kwanza niwaombe sana tumpigie makofi mengi Viveka. Tumpigie makofi mengi. Unajua huyu ni balozi wenu. Mnambatiza leo awe balozi wenu. Mnarizia? Tunyoshe mkono. Balozi wa localization, balozi wa kutetea hela zije kwa asasi za ndani. Maana yake tunaita indigenous civil society. Ya kimsingi swala la OECD DAC recommendation, mapendekezo ya kamati hii ya nchi zaidi ya 30 ambazo ziliungana miaka 61, miaka mingi iliyopita. Na lengo lao ilikuwa ni kuhakikisha kwamba ifikapo mwaka 2027 wanaweza wakaacha kutoa aid, kwa sababu wanaamini miaka 60 kama local CSOs wangekuwa empowered, wangekuwa na uwezo wa kuaddress community issues wenyewe. Lakini wamekuja kushtuka 2021 bado hali ni ile ile. Sasa kiukweli alicho present Viveka hapa ndio hali halisi. Kiukweli wale wanaofikiri kwamba CSOs loko tunapata hela huwa wanajidanganya. Nadhani nimeona uzuri hizi takwimu hatujatoa sisi, ningesema tumechonga. Wameandaa nani? Wao wenyewe wanaotoa hela 7%. Tena hiyo 7% ukiitafuta mle ndani, kama mnafahamu tutakuja kuzungumza baadaye, kuna kitu kinachoitwa localization of international NGOs and UN agencies. Unaweza kukuta ndani ya hiyo 7 kuna wale ambao wamejipatiza wamekuwa ni wa Tanzania, yani maana yake indigenous. Tunataka wageni tufanye nao kazi, lakini wabakie kuwa wageni na sisi tubakie kuwa indigenous, kwa sababu ukiwa umekuja ukawa Mtanzania na wewe una capacity na ofisi nchi zaidi ya 10, hela zinakuwa controlled headquarters, lakini unazichotea hapa, lakini zinakuwa controlled headquarters kule. Maana yake tunaingia kwenye changamoto. These are the facts ambayo CSOs ni walaumu miaka yote mmekuwa mzungumzi. Sasa wenzetu wameanza kutuzungumzia, alafu tumeshindwa kupick from there. Yani wao wametuandalia mpaka recommendation, wametuandalia roadmap, lakini bado tumekaa kimya. Mwaka juzi ndio tulianza kidogo, naona imewasaidia kina Neema kubadilika. Sio kwamba ni rahisi, tulianza kuzungumza kidogo na wenyewe wakaona kwamba kuna logic ya kuzungumza. Kwa hiyo kimsingi mapendekezo haya ni muda mwafaka sasa tuanze kuyazungumza, tuanze kuwaambia, tuanze kuungana na wachache kama hawa ambao wako tayari kuzungumza na sisi, kuweka mikakati ya pamoja. Sisi tunaamini kabisa kwamba uwezo unakuja kutokana na resources. Hakuna mtu anaweza kupata uwezo ukiwa umekaa porini tu kule hata una shilingi 10. Uwezo unakuja na rasilimali. Mtu akikupa rasilimali ya kutosha, uwezo automatic utaajiri watu wa kutosha, utawajengea uwezo, utakuwa na uwezo wa kuchukua watu. Kwa hiyo ile hoja ya capacity ambayo iko, kwa sababu katika maeneo matatu hoja zilizokuwa kama alivyoeleza dada hapa, ametoa hoja wale wanajitetea kwamba capacity zetu hatuna, corruption iko kila mahali. Kwa Trump alikuwa anafanya nini juzi? Corruption ziko kila mahali. Changamoto za kuendesha miradi ziko kila mahali. Haziko tu kwa kwetu local CSOs. Hilo ni neno ambalo linatakiwa liwe addressed as we are getting money. Yani natakuwa na address, na sasa hivi donors, I'm glad kwamba donors wengi they give you resources, they also address issues za capacity, wanajenga systems, accountability. So we go together, na maana zile 3 pillars mojawapo ni accountability. Kwa hiyo OECD recommendation wamekuja pia na agenda ya accountability, ya recommendation ambayo sisi kama CSO ni waombe na sisi tuibebe hiyo ya masuala accountability, transparency, kujenga system, ili walau tusiwape sababu ya kutunyima fedha kwa kwamba hatuna accountability, hatuna system, bado kuna issues za fraud na nini. Kwa hiyo kwa ujumla reflection yangu ni kwamba huu ndio muda mwafaka, na nitakapokuja sasa nitakuja kueleza ni kwa namna gani walau tumeanza sasa kufanyia kazi hizi recommendation, na nashukuru kwamba michakato tumeshaanza ya ndani kuona kwamba tunajenga utaratibu maalum wa kuwa tunazifanyia kazi recommendation, tunazifanyia evaluation, na tunakutana na dona mara kwa mara, na national reference group tulishaunda kuja kuzungumzia. Kwa hiyo kiufupi tu mimi ni appreciate presentation ya dada hapa, imesema ukweli, na msema kweli siku zote ni mpenzi wa Mungu. Na mimi niwaombe donors wengine kwa kweli wakiwa na spirit kama ya SIDA kwenye maeneo haya ya funding, lazima baada ya miaka kadhaa tutaona a very transformed civil society sector katika nchi yetu. Tutafika mbali, tutakuwa na uwezo hata huko mbele kitokea kama kilichotokea kwa Trump, tutakuwa na uwezo wa kuendesha shughuli za CSO bila hata kuwa na donor grant.
Asante Onesmo, na tumpigie makofi pia. Na asante kwa kutusaidia kumteua balozi wetu wa localization Viveka, tunakushukuru sana. So Viveka, and Dr. Kimambo particularly asked that you respond to this question. You've engaged on this topic a lot in the past. In essence, help us understand. There's a sense that this is a very deeply entrenched structural issue. And in fact, if you look at it as a system, then the underlying sort of mental models would suggest that it's rooted in racism, in colonization, and that's why we're talking about decolonization. But the one thing we know about development partners, our lovely development partners, they are big believers in evidence, right? But the evidence is showing locally led development actually works. It delivers better results, right? Funding, long-term, flexible, unrestricted funding actually delivers better results than restricted funding, than project-based funding. So, given that there's evidence and it's overwhelming, why isn't there change? Yes, please. Our Balozi.
First of all, I would like to thank FCDO and NEMA and Onesmo for your very interesting reflections, because we are in this together. We have to move this change together. And just some comments before I answer your question, or try to answer it. When I think I said local organizations in the presentation, I don't mean local organizations, I mean local, national. It means partner country level civil society organizations. And by the way, in the first toolkit that we did develop in the OECD DAC, we have a definition of what we mean with local or partner country civil society organization. And according to that definition, it is not an INGO who has gone national or gone local. And then when it comes to FCDO and the European Union reflections, this is not going to be an easy move, you know. We have to work on this together. It's difficult to change. People don't like to change. People don't like to be self-critical. We know that at a personal level, so this is on an institutional level. So revisiting or analyzing ourselves to see what it is we are doing badly and changing that will take time. But we have to collaborate with each other, learn from our mistakes, and, you know, try to push this, because we have committed to doing this change. We know that to be development effective and to be sustainable, there needs to be local or partner country level ownership and power. We talk very seldom about power, but it is permeated, of course, in everything in our lives, and particularly in this sector of international development cooperation. Let's talk about power. Let's talk about power. So, to answer your question, Justice, I hope that joining forces, and in the case of Tanzania, now you are aware of what the donors, the DAC members, have committed to doing. Demand accountability from us. Demand accountability from us. And spread the word. Let others know. We are doing it at the international level, informing and Global South civil society about these facts. And they are campaigning now, pressuring us. And that's, I think, how we reach this change. But it will take time. We have to be patient. But let's join forces to do it together.
Balozi wetu yako wapi jamani? Nilisema mwanzoni, ni ngumu sana kusema kweli kuona mtu aliyekaa upande huu akiomba kwamba hold us to account. And that is the message from Viveka. Sasa kwa sababu tumeishiwa kidogo muda, naomba dakika chache tupate contributions kutoka kwa watu wachache. Nyosha mkono juu sana, naona mko wengi sana. Sasa kwa sababu ya muda nitakuwa mbahili kidogo, nitakupa dakika moja tu. Kama ni swali ama ni contribution, please in summary form. Yeah? Comment ziwe fupi fupi. That's what we say. Karibu Nuru.
Thank you, Viveka, and the panelists for your very constructive presentation. I'll go direct to my contribution. Actually, when all of you were presenting, I was also thinking, like, how are we making this transformative?
Partners. True.
Yes, and it's good that Onesmo, you also highlighted actually these aids are going to an end, and that's the truth. I'm also thinking like, the aid system, it's like a dependent system to Africa, and we should think, how are we making our country transform? We transform from poverty to where we want to go by addressing the structural injustice in the international community. That is, I'm referring to financial architectures, that's being World Bank and IMF, but also in the UN governance. We thank you for advocating for human rights, democracy in our countries. We appreciate, but we don't see it in the UN governance, within the international governance. Like thinking in decision making, the whole Africa, we have less than 4% in decision making, and actually we can't make our own decision. We are the receivers. Taking an example, like right now, Africa is suffering from the for the climate change. We're suffering from droughts, from the landslides. We have seen how our government is spending a lot of money in droughts, in the landslide in Manyara, and spending a lot, but we are not responsible for that because our contribution is less than 3%, but the global north is issuing debts in Africa, and we are trapped in the debts instead of financing to the most crucial investment. So we ask you, just one minute, we ask you, if we really need a transformation, we should move from procedure to transformative action. That is addressing the colonization system in the UN system and global governance, and also the IMF and World Bank. I don't see anybody from World Bank here. We see examples when the US are in crisis, they get funding, grants to rescue their finance, their insurance and the banks. But when we are crisis, we got loans, and we are trapped into debts, and we cannot negotiate from that weakest point. Thank you.
Asante, makofi ya Nuru. Nilitaka nimprotect maana naona amekuwa emotional, but this is an emotional subject. Asante kwa kutukumbusha kwamba sio tu kwenye framework ya OECD na hizi nchi, lakini hata wa multilateral development cooperation also ina structural injustices that need to be addressed. Niona kuna mikono mitatu, 1, 2, 3. Sawa, twende. Hapa mbele kwanza. Okay, tuanze hapa kulia kwangu.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Moody Juma. I'm a student. You have talked a lot about CSO and the support, but I've not heard you discussing about people with disabilities and what challenges they would face. When it comes to the support that is going to be given to CSOs, do you also consider people with disability in getting this support? Second question, for the youth-led CSOs, how will you be supporting them if there's a lack of trust for the ones who are elderly? Will you be able to trust the younger version or the younger innovative people with disabilities in getting funds?
Asante kwa maswali. Maswali mazuri, yes. Hapa mbele.
Kwanza nianze kwa kupongeza sana Viveka pamoja na wote mliowasilisha panelists. Na nishukuru kwa ajili ya hii transition. Mimi naiona ni transformational transition. Though tumechelewa. Na pengine ningetaka kujihoji kwamba kama 93% kwa miaka yote hiyo na 2027 ni kesho kutu. Je, kuna namna ya kuweza kuzirecover hizo fedha walau pasenti fulani kama sehemu ya kutambua kwamba tuna regret kwamba tulifanya makosa? Kama hayo yanaweza kafikirika, hilo outside of the box. But my main point is this: kama CSO nafikiri tunahitaji kuwa na azimio la namna gani. Nimeona commitments zilizowekwa pale kwa ajili ya private sector pamoja na CSOs. Tunajipangaje sasa? Tunajiandaaje sasa? Tunaweka mikakati gani ya kuempower ourselves ili kuweza kuharness hii power shift, hii localization? Maana wengine unasikia localization lakini ameifafanua vizuri sana Vivek. Kwa hiyo nafikiri tutafute namna ambayo before the end of this week to come up na azimio la kujiandaa sasa. Hii power tunayoletewa, though tumechelewa, lakini tumejiandaje? Do we have enough capacity for that matter? Yeah. Competency and skills to manage.
Asante, makofi yake. Na jana wapo walikuwa wanauliza kuhusu radical ideas. I think ametoa very radical idea kwamba twende tukadai na zile za nyuma, si ndio? That's a very radical idea. Naomba tumalizie na mikono miwili ya mwisho pale nyuma kwa haraka sana.
Thank you. My name is Emmanuel Tim, and my question goes to the first presenter. Actually, you have done a very good presentation, and I do appreciate. But my question also goes, I'm building from the last the person who asked the question on the 93 and 7%. So we have had the very good excuse as to why such kind of a gap, but also we've also heard about the very good ways on how to bridge the gap. So my question is, who will hold them accountable if the commitment that they have said, the 3 commitments, they will not comply? Because it looks like they have raised the question, the excuse, but also they have also given us the recommendation, and they themselves, they've also made their commitment. Now, who will hold them accountable if they're not comply with those 3 commitments? Thank you.
Asante, very interesting question. Swali la mwisho, mchango wa mwisho. We are really out of time, kwa hiyo mchango wa mwisho.
Okay, thank you very much. My question it's not far away from the last presenters, as in the issue of being held accountable. You've said that we should hold you accountable, but is there any tool or are there any initiatives that aim to involve directly the CSOs from the Southern to hold you accountable? As in, if something is not being implemented, who is going to question you directly? Or have you created any tool that will enable the CSO from the Southern to ask you questions directly, or create something like pressure for you guys so that you can be able to hold the end of your bargain? Thank you.
Asante sana. Nafasi ya upendeleo lakini kwa haraka sana, sekunde 30. Maana umenyosha mkono kwa.
Yeah, asante jamani. Let's change our mindset. Easy money zinatoka huko kwao. But also let's change the culture. As if we are not going to see the likes of Vodacom, NMB from our own country corporations contributing, being donors. We will always be here complaining and asking, but it has come from us. We have to change first. We have to be the one, to be the donors as well, so we can change. But I have few questions. One, what does it really mean when we say locally developed, locally led development? Is it about registration status? Because again, we have seen a lot of international organizations here being led by Tanzanians.
Yes, the question,
but then the other one, is it about the source of funding? Is it because money is coming from abroad and we consider it local, or if the funding is coming from Tanzania, do we consider it locally led? Is it about the priority? Because again, if we are getting funds from outside, even if it is being led by national whatever organization, local CSO, but if we are implementing the priorities of the donors, who they don't have the context, and they are, again, it could be the same thing. We could be getting the money by local organization, but it's not our agenda. It's not our priority.
Asante. La tatu.
And when will this policy be really fully adopted?
Sawa, asante. When will the policy be fully adopted? Sawa. Naomba tupate round moja ya dakika moja, please. Zabdiel, Neema, Onesmo, and then Vivika. Can respond to any of the questions ambazo zimekuwa close to your heart. One question. Yeah.
Asante. Katika kujibu baadhi ya maswali, binafsi nilitaka nitaje hapa kwamba ubalozi wa Uingereza hapa Tanzania pamoja na ubalozi wa Switzerland hapa Tanzania tume team up, na kuna program ambayo zile pillars 3 za DAC recommendation ndiyo mpango mkakati wa program ya wajibika ambayo imeanzishwa na hizi balozi mbili. Namna gani civil society kama sector inaweza kuwa more effective, transparent and accountable. Swala la civic space is the central focus ya hiyo program, lakini pia ni kwa namna gani tunatoa flexible na pia long term, kwa sababu ni program ya miaka 5. Kwa hiyo nadhani tuna fursa kupitia program ya wajibika, na kuna members wa team ya wajibika wako humu ndani. Nataka niwainue ili mkiwaona mwaulize maswali. Any member of the wajibika team ambaye is here. There's Debra, ukimwona huyo muulize. There's Gertrude there,
namuona kule
yuko pale. Lakini pia there is another Gertrude sitting there. Kwa hiyo they are working behind the scene. There's Amani, I can see, and the teams there. Kwa hiyo wapo katikati yenu, na I must say kwa nyakati hizi tunazoishi, it is a very timely program, kwa sababu katika kipindi cha miaka 5 ubalozi wa Uingereza hapa Tanzania pamoja na ubalozi wa Switzerland tayari tumekusha jikomiti kutumia approximately pound milioni 24 kwa ajili ya kusupporti civil society organizations ambazo ziko Tanzania. Kwa hiyo nadhani kwamba ni mpango mzuri, na kuna maswali mengi ya kujifunza huko ndani, na mambo ya watu wenye ulemavu, vijana. There's a significant focus ya kuangalia swala la particularly vijana na mambo ya livelihood and mambo ya jobs, kwa sababu pia moja ya experience ambayo analysis imeonyesha ni kwamba yako mahitaji ambayo ni pressing. Kwa hiyo ni kwa namna gani unaangalia issues za civic space, lakini at the same time you have to solve practical really problems.
Asante sana Zabdiel, na kwa kuwainua pia watu wawajibika, even by nature of jina tu hilo wajibika linawasuta kidogo. Kwa hiyo Zabdiel ametuhimiza to hold accountable, na tumewaona, and I hope we will do that. Neema.
All right, a quick one regarding the tools. European Union tuna tool moja tunaitumia, inaitwa the Civil Society Roadmap. Ni tool ambayo tunaitumia globally, na huwa ni ya miaka 4. Huwa tunafanya consultations with civil societies. Hata hapa Tanzania tumefanya 2021 wakati tuna review ile iliyoisha. Kwa hiyo the current ile ambayo tulitengeneza 2021 imeisha mwaka jana, na bajeti yake ilikuwa ni euro milioni 11 around, na tuliweza ku launch call for proposals round 2. Kwa hiyo ile roadmap imekwisha, na mara nyingi ndio huwa tool tunayoitumia ku reflect mahitaji ya civil society hapa Tanzania. Ile ya mwaka jana civil society wali suggest maeneo 3 to improve the operational environment for CSOs, lakini the other component was all about the promoting dialogues. And the other one, the last one, actually was major 3 priority areas, na ya mwisho ilikuwa ni kwenye enhance capacity ya local CSOs. Kwa hiyo hayo yalitoka kwa CSOs, na mwaka huu sasa kwenye hii sako nyingine tena ya miaka 4 tutafanya consultation mwaka huu kuweza kuupdate mahitaji ya CSOs, na bajeti yake imeishakuwa approved mwaka jana November, na iko ni public, mtajua ni shingapi mkasachi tulizokuwa allocated tena kwa miaka 4 kwa ajili ya ni public document, lazima mjue, mimi si watajii. Kwa hiyo asante sana, lakini pia tu niseme kwa kiwango kikubwa kwa kweli CSO roadmap imetusaidia, lakini pia eneo lingine imetusaidia sana kuimprove even our engagement as European Union with local civil societies. Tunaona kwamba siku hizi tunashirikiana vizuri sana na mashirika yasiyokuwa ya kiserikali Tanzania, mna engage sana kwenye event zetu, activities, lakini hata kwenye kuformulate miradi mbalimbali. Asante sana.
Asante sana Neema. Makofi ya Neema yako wapi jamani? Pamoja na Zabdiel. In essence wanachotuambia ni kwamba kuna frameworks zipo tayari za kuwa engage kwenye hili swala la localization na tuzitumie. So that is from the supply side. Ingawa ni wenzetu, Dr. na Neema ni wenzetu. Onesmo, from the demand side, tunaweza tukafanya nini?
Asante, na mimi niwashukuru uliza maswali na kuchangia. Katika kutoa the way forward nitakuwa nimejibu baadhi ya maswali. Tunatakiwa tufanye mambo kama 5 yafuatayo. La kwanza, tuwe na utaratibu wa kutambua, kufanya assessment, kutambua tuko katika hali gani. Changamoto ambayo tulionayo muda mrefu CSOs, hatujitambui, hatupasi nafasi ya kufanya assessment. Leo hizi report tunaona za OECD recommendation zimeletwa na wenzetu, tulipaswa sisi wenyewe tujue hela ni kiasi gani inakuja kwetu na nani anapokea na inakwenda kufanya nini. Kwa hiyo assessment nyingi ziwe zinatuangaliza, tunapata hela model funding, tunapata core donor, core support, tunapata direct, wangapi wanapata core, wangapi wanapata hela ya moja kwa moja, wangapi wanapata ile ya kupitia kwa mwenzako anaokupitia kwa tuseme lugha tunailiwezoeleka mtaani ni nini, madalali, si ndio? Ingawa sio nzuri, lakini wanachukua watu alafu sisi tunaingia mle ndani. Hizo assessment kuzifanya, angalia hii assessment ulivyokuwa inakuwa inatuinform vizuri, itatusaidia. Kwa cha kwanza tufanye so many assessment. Kwa mfano leo tutakwenda kuangalia ile ya impact ya USAID, itatusaidia kujua tulikuwa wapi na tunakwenda wapi. Lakini la pili ni form coordinated platform za kuzungumzia funding situation, hali halisi ya kwetu. Siku zote tunatengeneza sana magroup mengi ya kufight na government, ya kufanya nini, ya kuaddress community issues. It's time now tuwe na groups ambazo zinatufanya sisi tukae tuzungumze na partners. Hatujawahi kuwa na coordinated effort za kukaa na partner. Kwa hiyo sisi tulianza baada ya tena huyu balozi wetu ndio alituambia mkae mjadiliane, tukakaa tukapitia hizo OECD recommendation, kwa sababu moja wapo ya requirement mtengeneze CSO reference group. Kwa hiyo tukatengeneza roughly tulikuwa kama 30 hivi 40 kwa ajili ya kupitia hizo recommendation. Tukatengeneza TOR ambayo kazi ya kwanza ni kufanya regular meeting na partners, ambayo mpaka tumeunda hiyo group hatujawahi kupata. Hii inaweza ikawa ndio ya kwanza. Kwa hiyo we need to have more coordinated effort. Na watakaotaka kuingia kwenye zile reference group ambayo tulianzisha, naona wengine wako hapo, mwenyekiti Kalage nimemwona hapa. Kwa hiyo we need to move forward. Hiyo ndio kwamba tukae nao tuzungumze. Na Neema nafahamu mazungumzo tulioanza miaka 3 iliyopita yanawasaidia hata na wao kupata nguvu ya kufanya reforms. Kwa hiyo ni way forward ya Mungu. Tuwe na hizo ya msingi, tuwe na hizo coordinated effort, tuwe na dialogue za kutosha. Dialogue hazina tatizo kama tulivyokaa hivi. Tunazungumza vizuri, tuko pamoja, then tuna move forward. La tatu ndio hiyo sasa, kuwa na regular strategy dialogues kuhusu funding. Yaani tusiwe tunazungumza tukikutana na hao wenzetu tunazungumzia situation na human rights, sijui hali ya watoto, hali ya wanawake. Tuwe na strategic meeting mara 3 kwa mwaka ya kuzungumzia issues za accountability, issues za funding and move forward. Ya 4 ni government engagement and policy reforms. Kwa sababu ukiangalia kuna mambo mengine sio tu yatahitaji pia serikali wawepo katika kumove forward, tunahitaji hata kufanya reforms za sheria zetu na policy zetu, ili mambo ya aid, decolonization, localization na mambo mengine yote yaweze kukaa pamoja. Lakini ya mwisho ya 5 ni joint venture. Tufanye kazi kwa pamoja na wenzetu wa international na UN agencies, kuliko tuione UNICEF iko kule Mtwara Tandaimba inatetea watoto. Let's work together, kwa sababu kule Mtwara Tandaimba kuna mashirika ya kule wafanye kazi na UNESCO, wasaidiane, wawatetee watoto. Hiyo joint venture Nadhani hizi hatua 5 tukizifanyia kazi strongly, kwa well coordinated, lakini katika kufanya hivyo principles zitakazotuongoza sasa ni hizi principles za aid localization, aid decolonization, decolonize international NGOs, locally led, naona na hizi 3 pillars za OECD ambayo ni civic space, support CSOs na accountability. Hizo ndo principle lazima zituguide kwenye hizo hatua 5 tunazozungumzia.
Asante, makofi ya Onesmo. Kuna a couple of actions ambazo wamerecommend na naamini tutazifuata. So Viveka, in closing, I'm going to ask you to make a political statement to rally us to action.
Thank you. I agree to everything that Onesmo said. I really believe it is time to mobilize and organize and join forces to do this. We can do a lot in Tanzania. We can learn from what's going on in other parts of the world also. Some are before us, some are behind us. Let's do this together. There are international dialogue platforms between Global South civil society and the OECD DAC, for instance, but I don't think that they are inclusive, and I think there are, for different reasons, INGOs are keeping guard there, so to speak. I think it's time to find another fora, another platform, create one. You should be creating one. Well, and Nuru, I love what you said. I agree with everything. I'm also very upset about those issues. Let's work on that. We are about to enter, or it's already started, the transformational transition. We are the ones to move it together. It's not anybody else who's going to do it. We have to do it. And the issue on the imbalanced funding flows, the 93.7, it's not only Tanzania, it's worldwide. And the way we change it is precisely implementing the DAC recommendation. So the donors start trusting Global South civil society, giving direct support, giving core support, building relationship, having mutual dialogues and conversations and consultations, transforming our role into one of ally, supporter, cheerleader. So the things that are mentioned in the recommendation is precisely what we need to do from the donor side. And you are the ones to demand us to do it.
You are the one you've been waiting for, exactly. Ndio anachosema, you are the one you've been waiting for. Jamani, naomba makofi kwanza kwa panelists wangu wote. I think tumejitahidi this very heavy conversation, lakini break down at a level ambayo inatusaidia wote engage. Sasa nisitumie muda kimoja. I think tumeachieve kitu. Kama hujaondoka na kitu hapa, angalau umejua kuhusu OECD DAC recommendations, si ndio? Wangapi wanasema tumezijua? Yes, naona karibia wote. Aya, sasa knowledge ni step ya kwanza. Action. Si ndio? Action. Wangapi tunasema tuko tayari ku-engage kwenye hii topic, hii subject, na ametu-challenge balozi wetu kwamba tutengeneze platform yetu wenyewe. So this week tutakuwa na majadiliano ambayo yatatusaidia kuona ni platform ya namna gani tunaitengeneza kwa ajili ya ku-engage kwenye agenda yote ya decolonization. Na itatusaidia pia ku-engage na platforms ambazo some of the development partners wanazo tayari, kama alivyozungumzia Neema kuhusu the civil society roadmap, framework ya wajibika, na hizi za OECD zote. Kuna tools, frameworks nyingi sana ambazo tunabidi tuzielewe pamoja kama civil society sector. Na bahati nzuri pia hii ni kazi ambayo sisi kama FCS tunaifanya at the level of East Africa pamoja na partners wetu. Tuna Financial Resilience Resource Hub ambayo itatoa pia mchango katika hili eneo. Lakini niwashukuru sana, hii conversation itaendelea, hapa sio mwisho. Kumbuka tu, you are the one you've been waiting for, so let's hold them to account. si ndio? Asante.
All right, tuwapigie makofi mengi sana. Na naomba msimame mpige picha maalum. Please stand up. Please stand together and take a special photo. Naomba tafadhali sana tuwapashie kwa namna yetu tafadhali. Wote watano waliosimama hapo, pasha pasha pasha. Justice tunakupashia, Ole tunakupashia, Vive tunakupashia, Neema Doctor tunawapashia. CSO Week 2025 imefanikisha session yenu. Safi kabisa. Haya, sawa sawa. Sasa tupeni basi na nyinyi ile pathways to progress. Tafadhali sana. All right, thank you very much. That's the picture that we want. Umetupeleka hivyo hivyo. All right, wakati mnashuka naomba nitoe matangazo maalum tafadhali. Naomba nitoe matangazo. It seems this session ilikuwa inahitaji 2 hours, sio saa moja. Kwa hiyo tunaweza tukasamehe kwa hilo kutokea, na tutaendelea ku apologize kwa wengine ambao wanasubiri kwenye sessions zao kwenye vyumba ambao vinasubiri hivi sasa. Naomba tuangalie kwa makini ratiba zetu, tuna breakout. Sawa.